HOA Karen used a siren to scare coyotes. It triggered a wildfire evacuation across 3 counties. I've fought wildfires for 12 years, but I never thought I'd be fleeing one. Started by my neighbor. My name is Caleb Reyes. I'm a former smoke jumper turned ranch hand, recently settled in the quiet town of Laurel Ridge, a rural community where the trees stretch tall and the neighbors stretch their noses higher. My fiance and I moved here for peace after I retired from the Forest Service, tired of jumping into infernos, ready to raise goats, maybe a kid or two. We picked the farthest edge of the ridge, near the tree line, where coyotes roam but the stars burn bright. The only downside, our neighborhood committee, a glorified HOA made up of 4 retirees with walkie-talkies, laminated badges, and zero common sense. At the top of this crew was Karen Whitcomb, hair sprayed stiff, sunglasses indoors, always patrolling with a clipboard and a copy of something she called the Wildlife Deterrence Directive. She claimed Laurel Ridge was being overrun by coyotes and blamed loose property management and incompetent fence placement. Meaning me, I knew the coyotes. I tracked them for years in the service. They were cautious, smart, and harmless if left alone. They never came near our goats. We kept them penned and used deterrent lights. But that wasn't good enough for Karen. I've logged 5 coyote sightings this week alone, she told me, waving her phone. They'll start snatching babies next. I laughed. Ma'am, the closest thing to a baby around here is my billy goat, and he'd headbutt a bear. She didn't laugh. She filed a citation against us for predator-attracting foliage. Then she started holding HOA emergency briefings in her driveway. She even roped in a couple old-timers with time on their hands and too much trust in her tactics. Together, they hatched the worst idea I've ever seen in my life. They bought an agricultural-grade predator alarm. It was meant for massive ranches, built to blast a rotating 130 decibel siren, the kind you use to scatter wolves, or maybe zombies. Karen had it mounted at the top of her driveway, on a wooden post, in mid-July. I begged her not to use it. That's a fire risk, I said. You know these hills. We're in a red flag warning. 1 spark from the generator. She waved me off. I know the land, she said. My HOA permit gives me full jurisdiction. If the government won't protect us, we'll do it ourselves. I looked around. No officials, no permits, just Karen, a gas generator, and the self-righteous look of someone too proud to admit she doesn't know what she's doing. Then she pressed the button. The siren roared. It was louder than any firefighting horn I'd ever heard. Coyotes fled. So did deer. So did half the neighborhood's dogs. But 2 minutes in, the generator sparked. It hit a pile of dry grass behind the post. The flames were small at first. Then the wind kicked up. I smelled it before I saw it, that dry, bitter tang of fire taking hold. I grabbed my radio, the one I hadn't used in years, and barked into it. Brush ignition at Lot 9, West Ridge moving fast. People ran. Some didn't even grab bags. A woman screamed about her horse. Children were herded into pickups. And Karen. She stood frozen, watching the flame creep toward her porch. By the time the fire department arrived, 3 counties had dispatched evac orders. Sirens wailed across valleys. News helicopters buzzed above us. The entire west slope of Laurel Ridge turned orange by sunset. My goats were fine. I broke a fence getting them out. The old barn next to Karen's house. Gone, 3 days later. I was interviewed by the fire marshal. You say she installed the siren without permission? He asked. She did, and she ran the generator during a red flag advisory. He nodded grimly. We traced ignition to the base. Looks like electrical spark from an overheating coil. Karen tried to claim it wasn't her fault that the HOA authorized the siren, that the generator was inspected. But the HOA wasn't real. No city record, no insurance, no authority. And the inspection, a YouTube video, and a receipt from Tractor Town. When the story hit the news, public backlash exploded. Karen Whitcomb's siren sparks wildfire disaster, residents flee in chaos. Social media flayed her. One outlet called it suburban arson by entitlement. Hashtags like Us Karen the Kindler trended for days. Lawsuits poured in, at least a dozen. property loss, evacuation damages, emotional distress. One family had to sleep in their van for 2 nights. Karen tried to disappear, but this was fire season, and people were angry. I met with neighbors under a scorched tree weeks later. It became a vigil of sorts. We shared photos, stories, our losses. But something else happened. Two, we started organizing. Not like Karen, for real. We formed a community resilience council voted on, verified, legal, with wildfire education, proper emergency alerts, and experts, not egos. The first order of business, a wildfire memorial trail with signs that educate instead of intimidate. Guess whose burned siren pole we used for the entry marker? Karen moved out before winter. Her house, smoke-stained and empty, sat on the market for 6 months. No one wanted it. I still hike that trail sometimes, with Lita, my goat, and the same old radio clipped to my belt, just in case. People wave. Kids climb the new lookout tower we built together. There's a plaque that reads, "Fear spreads fire. Wisdom prevents it, and courage rebuilds." Sometimes one person's mistake tears through a valley, but sometimes a community rises from the ashes. And this time, we did. The Rende Referentum